connect. Looks like it is. Excellent. All right, we are live. Oh. Figure out where we left off. I think I know. All right, so we went through, introduced R. Oh. There it is. All right, so we created our Markdown document. All right, created our Markdown document. And what we are working on is we introduce the objects, creating objects, the data points, vectors, and we made our data frames. All right. So we did data.nums, and that has odd nums and even nums. So what we can do now is to go ahead and open up your R Studio. I'm going to open mine up. All right, so when I opened mine up, I don't know if this is going to be the same as yours, but mine opened up exactly where we left off. So we left off here. So see if yours also opened up. And if not, then did it open? Nate, yours opened. On your personal laptops, right? So if you had your personal laptops, it probably opened up. All of mine have. They open up whatever you were last working on. If yours didn't, then what you're going to have to do is find that file that we saved and open it up. And I'm not sure how you set up your folders, but if we go back to if I go back to my biostats, so here's the Windows folder, the Explorer. I can go to R, and then I put it in Markdown, and mine was a 00-intro to R. So I had that set up. So I just opened that one up, and it should open up with all the formatting. What the heck happened? That's back. I feel like we are cut off. No, I guess not. All right. Everything was just minimized. All right, so are you here? Right? All right. So we do have a new student. Sorry to put you on the line. I can't remember your name. What's that? Adugo. All right, so everyone here kind of introduced themselves. Last week, unfortunately, you weren't here. So introduce yourself, and why are you taking biostats?
Biostats or biometry?
Yeah, biometry.
I named Adugo. Taking this class because my advisor asked me to take it. But,
Not because you want to take it. New graduate student, is that correct? All right, so new graduate student, another graduate student here. So you're going to feel like you're behind. Just flat out, you're going to feel like you're behind. Videos are posted. All right. The ones that we're working on is this introduction to R and the R Studio. So those are going to probably be the ones that we're going to get going, to get up to speed. And what we are working on is R Studio. This is R. So if you open up R Studio, this is what we're working on. So if you go on here and on R Studio, yep. And what we're going to do is go to File, New File, R Market. And then you can call it whatever. I think I called it Intro to R is what I called it. And we're going to create a word. And what you do is you clear it down. Alright. And then we are, like in the video, it kind of starts you through that to get to where it's going to look exactly what I have. Yep. All right. So what you would notice when we open these up. Yep. Oh no, you can't find your file. Where'd you save it? Okay. Let's go to File. Your recent files. Okay, open file. Okay, so you think you saved it. What would you call it? Is the whole file on? Let's see your network. Yep. Okay, scroll up. Check. It's there. Your environment's there. Let's get a file open again.
Oh, yeah, I would love to see that.
Did you check downloads? Did you create a new folder? Okay, what was the folder? Okay. And it wasn't on your drive, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're probably gonna have to. Yeah, probably. I don't think you're the only one either. So we're gonna have to make sure. We're gonna make sure that when we save, we're gonna have to make sure we save. If you're on your own personal computer, your laptop, this is less of a concern. But on the network, what we're gonna have to do is when we do the save as, don't use the shortcuts. Go ahead and go to your network drive. And once you get to your network drive, then you can go to the documents. We don't want to trust the shortcuts on the side. Because I'm not quite sure where all that is, where everything is. Okay, and then maybe today, before you close out, just open up your Windows Explorer. It's here. And go to your network drive just to make sure that that file is in that folder. You've created a folder and that it's there. All right, so what I'm going to point out is that mine came up with an empty environment. Okay? So I didn't have anything that loaded. If yours opened up, you may have all of those objects that we created. All right? That's okay, but remember that warning that I gave you. Sometimes when you start with that, you start trying to use another variable name of the same name, and then you get wrong answers because you didn't recreate it. All right? So if you needed to start fresh, you can go ahead and clean it out. So that's that broom. We'll remove everything. And then what we can do is run everything in this document again to create it. So when we go up to run, we have all of these sections on what we want to do. And what I can do is just do all chunks above where my cursor is. So my cursor's at the bottom. And what that will do is run everything, all of the chunks that are above that cursor, and you'll see that I've created some more stuff in this environment. Not everything. There's some stuff that didn't work. Object Z not found. So here's a case where it was running all the chunks, and it ran until it got to this spot here where it said object Z not found, and then it stopped. All right, that's kind of what happened when we have it in memory. So now I go down below there. I'm gonna do run all chunks below, and now that finishes everything out. Now I'm gonna leave this in here because that was part of the instructional set. But if I was actually doing this in real life, working on some sort of stats analysis, stats project, and I found out that I actually had an error message coming up, I would fix that. I would look at this and say, oh yeah, Z's not in memory. Let's first make Z and then run it. The most likely errors that you'll run is when you loaded a data file and then you didn't put that function in your R Markdown document. So you reference the data file and it says object not found. I can't find the data file. All right, and then that's just your clue to say, hey, maybe I need to put the data file actually in here, and we'll learn how to do that today. All right, so we're up to that point. Shows you how to make objects. Shows you how to make the data frames, take vectors, put the vectors into a data frame, and now we have an example. I should say practice problem. All right, so here's our practice problem. I'm going to ask that you make a data frame called data.cars. All right, and this data frame is going to contain 3 different variables. All right, so variable 1, you should call it cars. All right, and the cars will have 5 values in it. It'll have GMC, Chevy, Ford, Toyota, and Nissan. All right. Now, when you put those values in, those are not numbers. It's actually text. So in order to get R to read it as text, we have to put it in quotations. So you can use either double quotes or single quotes. Okay? So however you want it. But the actual text, the GMC has to be in quotes. Ford has to be in quotes. Toyota has to be in quotes. All right? Variable 2, I want you to call number. All right? And then for number, I want you to have the values 5, 7, 5, 3, 1 in that order. Okay? And then variable 3, I want you to call it MPG. And I want these 5 values in there: 23.4, 23.2, 19.8, 25.5, and 20.1. All right? And once you think you have this, so get this made, then issue your data.cars command, and so you can view it and then compare it to your neighbor's data frame and see if you did it correctly, or see if they match. All right? I'm going to give you time to do that. If you run into problems or anything, please call me over. Yep.
Okay, so what we're writing in our code. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna insert our chunk right there, and then that puts this chunk in. This will be where we can run and execute code. So for here, then what we're gonna do is start with making these three vectors. So cars, number, and MPG. And then once we have those vectors, then I would make our data.cars. So part of this, one of the ways in which we make the vectors is we give it the name, the object name. So we'll start with the cars. Okay. And then we're going to use the arrow to say, we're going to save it. So we're going to use the less than sign and then the dash. Yep. So that's our arrow. So we're saying we're going to take everything to the right and we're going to save it as cars. All right. And then our vector is going to use the combine function. So lowercase c in parentheses. Okay. And now what we do is we add each of these values, GMC, Chevy, Ford, Toyota, Nissan, and we separate it by a comma. But each of those is going to have to be in a quotation mark, or double or single quotes. Okay, each one. Is that? Oh. Go to file. R mark. Oh no. Error.
We need like data.number.
No, well, you're missing some stuff. So that should be
Creating vector.
yeah, right now, every time it sees it, how much it's thinking it has a new entry. So right now, it's got like a variable name, GMC, and a variable name, Chevy, Ford, Toyota. Right? So we're gonna probably make a vector first. Well, data.cars, you're still missing some other stuff. Other
Okay.
cars,
Okay.
and it's not a data frame now, you make cars. I'm going to say there's a couple different ways to do it. All right, I'm going to go through how I would do it. So my first step, if I was doing it, is to make a vector of cars. I would call it cars. So I'd make a vector of cars that has all of those 5 values in it. All right? I'd make a vector of cars. And remember, how do we make a vector?
Yeah, the lowercase c, we use the combine function. So the lowercase c makes our vector, and then we're going to save it as cars. All right, and then I'll repeat that to create a vector called number, and then I'd repeat it to make a vector called MPG. But and these last two are numbers. They're numeric vectors, so we don't have to use the quotations. We only have to just list the numbers and make sure we separate everything by a comma. Once I have the 3 vectors, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to issue the data.frame command that says, take these vectors and now create a data frame. All right, so that's how I would approach it. Where do you use it?
Okay, yeah.
R's on it, right? You can get it. How's it going? Some people got it. Should make this as a final exam question. You'll laugh at me. You lost it. But something so easy on it. I felt guilty when I had the final exam question and I asked, use R to round this value.
Should all of these be a separate chunk for each variable?
What's that?
Should all of those for each variable be a separate chunk?
Separate. Oh, no. Mine that you're going to see, I put it all in one chunk.
And so did I, but it's.
And it should be in order.
Well, you have
So if you do the data frame function first, and then you create the vectors, you're going to get an error and it won't work. So you have to do things in progression.
If you make the vector name with a capital letter and you try to put it into the data frame with a lowercase letter, will it mess up?
I was so.
it's like you did everything right.
So you have to have it exactly.
Exactly.
Good, thanks guys.
All right, so I'm going to show you how I did it. That over. All right, so in R, again, this was a continuation of creating objects. So we did, object, or a data point, vector, data frames. So I continued with my header style, so the 3 hashtags. All right, called it practice. And I'm saying I'm going to make a practice data set. Here is our information. There's our data. So what I'm doing is I have to do it in order in this chunk. So I'm going to create the 3 vectors. I make the cars vector. All right. And how did I make the cars vector? Using the combine function, that lowercase c. And I called everything, by their name, as it was on that presentation. And I made sure I did quotation marks. If you did all capitals, that's fine. If you did all lowercase, that's fine. I'll show you how we handle that, how we deal with it. But for now, I just did it exactly how it was on the PowerPoint. And then I made the number vector. So the number vector, again, I used the C, the combine function. I gave the numbers. Since they're numbers, I don't have to put quotations around them. All right. And then I made the MPG vector. So all times, remember this saving an object is the C. I created this vector of these numbers, and then I saved it as the object MPG. So kind of one of the things that we'll do, one of the questions on our closed book exam is for you to explain what a function does. So if I put this number line here and say, explain what this does, you should be able to tell me that we created a vector of these numbers and saved it as the object number. And just verbalized exactly what it did. All right, and then when I was done, I had that 3 vectors, and then I made a data frame, data.frame, and the data frame is going to have cars, number, and MPG. Now, I didn't change the name, so I didn't use that equal sign. I didn't do cars equals cars, or number equals number, or MPG equals MPG, because I already created the vectors with the name, with the column names that I wanted in that data frame. If it was different, if I did, let's say, A, B, and C, those are the objects, then yes, I would use cars equal A, number equal B, MPG equals C. And that way, in my data frame, it will show up as the car column, the number column, and the MPG column. Now, how do I know that it worked? I have this data.cars. I put it in a separate chunk. I'm going to run it, and then it gives me my data frame. It shows me that I have 3 variables, right? 3 columns, 3 variables. We got a car variable, number variable, and an MPG variable. Now, Grant asked, if I made the vector with cars with a capital C, but in the data frame, I use cars with a lower c, is that the same thing? Absolutely not. So we are working in a command line system where capitalization matters. Lowercase c and capital C have two different functions. Lowercase x and uppercase x, two different objects. All right? So we will see, we have an ANOVA function, all lowercase, and we have a capital A NOVA function, two different functions. Capitalization will matter. All right. Not terrible, hopefully. All right. Any questions? So you will have some practice with this on the homework assignment that gets posted. Yep. What's your error message? Cars. Okay.
Let's check it out. Cars is not recognized. Let's see if the vector was engaged correctly. Nope, when you insert jump, just leave it as is. I don't even do like an example. I just leave it as R. You could, I think it'd be useful if you were writing and say, oh, because you're going to have a bunch of stuff. You call it differently because then you can reference it. Maybe I know that.
All right. So we'll have some practice doing this again. And again, as you might feel shaky, but man, give it a week or two, and it'll be fairly easy for you. All right, so creating data is one step, and we will create data. You'll see us create data throughout the class. Are we always going to create our own data? No. The vast majority of the time, I will give you a data set, or I'll tell you to load a data set that's built into R. So what we're going to do is introduce you to these data sets, to how to actually handle it. And I should also say that if you're doing like some sort of project on your own, you have to know how to get your data from, let's say, Microsoft Excel into R. This is where I'm going to show you. All right. So data can be read from an internal or external data set. The internal data sets are all of those data that are built into R or some other data package. The external data is going to be data that either you generate yourself and you created the data frame, or a data set that I give you. Now, if you're going to create your own data set, I strongly recommend that you use a spreadsheet program. Excel, Google Sheets, LibreOffice, some other spreadsheet programs, so that way you can create one column per variable, one row per item. All right, very easy. And then when you create that program, I strongly suggest that you save it as a CSV. I wouldn't save it as a CSV until you're ready to transfer it over into R. So I keep it in the native file format until I'm ready to get it to R, and then I save that worksheet with my data as a CSV and get it transferred. All right. There are ways around the data, the file name stuff, or the file type stuff, and R's gotten better at working with Excel documents, but you can never tell what's actually going to happen when Microsoft pushes a new update through. All right, so if you save it as a CSV, it's just simply a text file where every column is separated by a comma. That's all it is. All right, so what we're going to do is start with an internal data set first. So these are the data files that are built into R, either into the base package or into some other package that is there. We can view the built-in and ready to load data sets using the data function. All right. So this is what we can do. I'm going to go back to R and kind of demonstrate that. All right, so we're going to have our new header. All right, so we're going to learn how to read data sets into R. We're going to start with our internal data sets. All right, so this is how we view the available data sets. All right, so I kind of went through and started to annotate in R Markdown. Said what we're going to do. I created my chunk, so insert R. Or Control-Alt-I, I think is what I did, or Control-Shift-I, something like that. All right, and I said the function is actually data, parentheses, open and closed. So I'm going to run it here and see what happens. And what happens is when I run this chunk, it doesn't output anything down here, but it does produce a new tab. And this new tab lists all of the data sets that are accessible in R right at this moment. All right, so when you run data, do you see these? All right, so what this says is data sets in the package, data sets package. So the data sets package is automatically loaded when we start R. This all of these data set names and brief descriptions of them, all right? And then we keep scrolling down, and that's it. That's all that we have available to us right now. All right? You'll see that the women data set is already built in. Now, most of these data sets that are available that you can see when you type in data are going to be accessible just by typing their name. All right? Remember how we did our data frame, created our data frame, and then we typed in the name of the data frame and it gave us the output? Yeah, try the same thing with women. Women's a built-in data set. It's in that data set package. Go ahead and do that. All right, and I ask here is, what are the names of the two variables in the women data set? And you should be able to tell me. So what is one variable name? Height? Is there another one? Weight? Height and weight? All right, so yeah, I'm just going to type in women. All right, it gives height and weight. Lists the data there. And what you'll see is when I scroll down to here, it says it's only listing rows 1 to 10 of 15 rows. All right, so it gives me a next, a pages basically. So I can hit next to view the rest of them. If we did it down here in our console window, it runs the output right in the console. Again, I could tell it's height and weight. Those are the variables. But now we can, I think, a little bit more easily see what our sample size is. So it goes down to 15. But I mean, it gives you everything. Occasionally, you may have to go type it into the console because sometimes the pages, the data set's so long that, you know, the pages, you don't want to have to go to page 8 or page 9. But that's how you look at a data set, all right? So if it's already built in, if it's accessible, when you type in data, if you can see it, all that you have to do is type in women, and you're working with it. some data sets actually have to be loaded first. All right. So in order to load those data sets, what we have to do is do data, parentheses, and then the name of the data set in order to make it accessible. The times when I've seen this happen is when the variable names in that data set conflict with some other variable names, possibly even another data frame name. And then R complains. R won't reference, won't give you that data set until you say, hey, yes, give me that data set. I want to work with it. Now, what's nice about this function is that we don't have to load a package to make the data sets accessible. All right, we can say, I want to work with a specific data file in a specific package, but I don't want to load that package. So here's kind of a demonstration of this. All right, so I'm just here's all of the packages that I have installed. All right, these are all the packages that I have installed. You can see dataset is already loaded. That's our basic dataset package. I'm going to go to this, differential evolution optimization in pure R. I have no idea what that package is there for. I've never used it. All right. When I checked it, I've loaded it into memory. Now, I am going to go back to this data, and I'm going to run it again to view it. And we see the same thing, our data sets, everything that we've seen. And if there was data set in that package, it would appear here. Obviously, that doesn't work. Let's unload that one. Let's find something else. BCD. Let's see if BCD is it. Let me find another package just so you can see it. BCD. There it is. Visualizing categorical data. That should work. I will run my data command, run that chunk. I don't know which one this is. Data sets, there it is. Yep. Oh yeah, it does. There it is. So here's our second package, BCD. So it's loaded in memory. These data files are now accessible. Now, if I didn't want to load the data set, but I wanted to get access to the baseball data frame, what I would use is data, parentheses, and then baseball, and package equals VCD. All right, so I do have an example of this that we can do. All right, so the vegan data set is a data set that we will use. The graduate students will use this next semester, use it somewhat extensively. All right, so the vegan data set is a vegetation analysis package, all right, and it includes a bunch of data sets. All right, one of the data sets is called Dune. All right, so what I want you to do is to access the Dune data set by using the names function. All right, so data set isn't in memory yet because we didn't load the package. All right, we can load the package and then get access to the Dune data set, or we can use our data function here to get access to the Dune data set, which then, once we have access to it, then we can issue the names function on that data set, and that'll give us our variables. All right, so I will give you like 30 seconds just to see if you can access the Dune data set. Yep.
I don't have the vegan one listed.
Yeah, I don't have to
And then there's a few others that
Ooh.
you had that I didn't.
Yeah, okay, so if you don't have vegan, let's try this. So install package, and then type in vegan, or start typing in vegan, and then hit install and see if it'll work. And if not, then we're not going to use the vegan right now. Oh no, the Dune package. We need the data set. You're on your own personal computer. Yes, if you're on your own personal computer, this package does not come automatically loaded. There will be packages that we'll have to load. Thank you for that. I forgot about it. So how do you load packages? So you go, or how do you install packages? What you have to do is go to the package tab and hit install. And then our repository that we're going to use is the Crane repository. So it'll download the packages automatically. And then what you're going to do is start typing in the package name. And you'll see as you start typing it in, it'll show you all the different possibilities. I picked vegan. You can leave the install to library as the default, whatever it's there. But you should have the install dependencies checked. So when you install it, if there's other packages that it depends on, it will automatically install it. If you're working on the computers here in the lab, they should have all of the packages that we'll use. So you shouldn't have to install it, but personal computers will. And the Macs may take a little bit longer to load because they may be
We'll have it,
compiling.
I have it over on the side in packages, but if it doesn't show up in data sets here, that still has it, right? Is this supposed to show up still?
Yeah, did you rerun that data? Because that's still the old, that's still only looking at what was loaded at the time that you ran it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. I was reading
All right,
Yeah, say like,
so let's try this.
I'm going to cancel this, close my data sets. All right, I'm going to work with vegan. So let's view the women data set. Now, practice, we'll load the Dune package, or the Dune data set in the vegan package. All right, so what I am going to do is just issue the data command. We're going to load Dune.